For me, that was kind of like this eureka moment where, oh, restaurants are an industry that are successful. And when people talk about them being the hardest business, it's a lot of the time because nothing's supporting. Before I tell you a little bit more about Tab and the platform that we provide, I want to make sure that I'm sharing a little bit about ourselves and why I'm so passionate about the problems that we're solving for the restaurant industry here at Tab Commerce. So my background is, I think it's a little bit unique. I think it's a fun background to talk about. I went to school and I kind of grew up in this world of assuming that I would get into finance. I went to school for finance. I have a degree in financial economics. But then I graduated and like everyone else, had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to go skiing. And so I remember I was sitting at home one day and I said, all right, ski season's in 8 more weeks. I need to figure out a way to make some money quickly so that I can go move across the country, live in a mountain town and just be a ski bum for a few months. I'll figure out my career later. And so that's when I stumbled into working in a restaurant. My very first job ever at one point was a fry cook. And I remember just scrubbing my face at the end of the shift. I knew I didn't want to do that, but I was always excited by the magic that is working behind a bar. And so I went in and thought I could be a bartender. I learned really quickly that it takes a very long time to actually become a bartender in a nightlife area like Toronto, where I'm from. And I started working as a busser and I started cleaning dishes and started making a little bit of money. And it was funny. I started making more money than my finance internships. And I was so excited about the fact that I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to be able to do this. So that quickly then kind of progressed a little bit further. I ended up becoming a bar back and just really fell in love with the restaurant world. And funny enough, I wasn't actually able to find a place to live where I wanted to go skiing. And so those 8 weeks quickly turned into, 4 months. Kept doing this a lot longer and just started learning more and more about restaurants and more about what it meant about the guest experience. And really, for me, just became obsessed with this idea of people are coming out of their day-to-day lives to go to a moment in time in a restaurant where nothing else matters except for the person that they're sharing that meal with. Or if they're an individual who's coming in by themselves, being that barback or that bartender who can give them that experience as well. And I really, really started to love it. The fun thing about that was COVID happened, and for us in Canada, everyone got sent home, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I ended up just kind of sitting around and twiddling my thumbs, and a really cool opportunity came up where I actually got to become a private chef for an ultra high net worth family. So I'd always been a big cook in my own personal time, but all of a sudden this opportunity came where I was like, hey, maybe I could go actually make something of this. I love restaurants. I love food. I love people. Let's see if I can kind of make a go of this. So I moved up to their summer home, their lake house in Northern Ontario, and started cooking. One of the most spectacular experiences of my entire life, some of the most ridiculous stories. One of the things that I thought was always the funniest was the family had this plate, and this plate had a built-in bowl, and it's where they used to put caviar into the bowl, and they just scoop it with Ritz crackers. Now, I do not want to know how much money was being spent on caviar for them to have a little snack at the end of the day. But to me, this opulence was the most insane thing I'd ever seen. And all of a sudden, I was the one who was cooking for them. Now, the end of the summer came and I was kind of thinking to myself, I don't know if I want to do this, right? I have a degree in finance. Finance was still something that was really exciting to me. I loved the hospitality industry, but I knew that I didn't want to be a chef after some of the stories and things I had to do. But I decided I was going to go work in, technology. In the fintech world, I thought I could blend lots of different things and, started going about my sales career. It was funny. I think everyone who's worked in a restaurant knows that you can always try to leave, but you never actually get to leave. Because after the first few months of me working at my sales job, I found myself working Fridays and Saturdays back at the bar. And it was at that time at the bar that all of a sudden the financial implications of working at a restaurant started to become much more apparent. I wasn't just a kid who had graduated, who was looking to make some money. I was pretty oblivious to everything else around him. Outside of that, I started to see what was actually going on within this restaurant. I remember there was one day, it would have been about the second week of December, right when we had the most holiday rush going on, right? We would have, buyouts on one of the event floors of this restaurant I worked at. The restaurant I worked at, by the way, it had 4 floors. It was absolutely massive. Tons of different venue centers, 5 different venue centers going at once. And so during this time in December, we would typically have a buyout for holiday parties. You had people coming in and spending more because it's Christmas season, everyone's excited. You have at times potentially weddings going on, and there was just lots of stuff. So you had a lot of money coming through. And I remember sitting down in my pre-shift meeting, right? It's 4:30 on a Thursday. And our manager, who we all affectionately called Poppy, is running through the sales from last night. And he's reading out just how much we had sold. And I had always known that things could get quite large, just given the amount of people would be in this restaurant. But he says, yeah, last night we did $100,000 in sales. And quickly, I'm starting to do the math in my head. I'm like, $100,000 in sales. That's pretty significant, considering the fact that that was a Thursday and our biggest revenue night is Saturday, which we then topped that following Saturday with $120,000 in sales. I'm thinking to myself, okay, there's a lot of money that's moving through this business, but I'm also seeing who's managing it. And it was kind of a patchwork of bartenders and shift leaders and managers, and there is a director of operations who is running between these 3 different venues. They're all part of the same hospitality group. And I'm remembering from my tech industry or my tech job that I'm working at, where if we had $100,000 in sales in one day as a company at this startup, we would have so many tools at our disposal. Yet in the restaurant world, something that's not really exciting for anyone. No one's really talking about how much money is moving through it. There's nothing there to support them. And that was when I first started to think about restaurants as a lot more than just a way for me to pay for what was supposed to be my ski bum days. Fast forward another week or so from there, I remember walking past the chef's closet. It was an office, but realistically it was a closet. There's still people's coats hanging. And I'm seeing this stack of invoices. There's a stack of invoices that has to be, if I think more about it has to be about 1.5 feet tall. And there is a sous chef going through that and punching them into what would have been optimum control, a pretty legacy inventory system, and absolutely hating their life. The first thing I can think of, there's just no way that person is able to go through every single invoice and make sure that it's what they actually paid for, right? Like how much money is actually slipping through the cracks. I remember the fact that we did $100,000 in sales on that Thursday and $120,000 on that Saturday. And here's a stack of invoices that's supposed to help balance all of this. Right? There's nothing in this system that was built to support this business and the amount of money that was actually funneling through it. So for me, that was kind of like this eureka moment where, restaurants are an industry that are successful. And when people talk about them being the hardest business, it's a lot of the time because nothing's supporting them, right? We have a restaurant on King West in Toronto that is incredibly successful, has always been successful. And it's so unbelievably manual just to manage something that should be completely automated. Right? I remember being told to run across the street to go grab limes because we had run out, and someone just handed me a 20 out of the till. Now I came back and I gave the change to the head bartender, but I have no idea whether or not that ended back in the till. We used to call it the shrapnel. Does the shrapnel actually make it back into the till? Those, for us in Canada, the loonies and toonies, which I know all my American friends think is quite funny. It never makes it back in the till. It is missing the first time it's taken out. It's never getting back in. And so that was really this kind of eureka moment. That was this kind of wake up call for me that there's an industry that is massive. People are making tons of money. People are spending tons of money. People are very good at managing the hospitality element of it, that you want to come to them to spend your hard-earned money to experience something great. And yet from a technology perspective and a finance perspective, nothing's there to support. And that was always just insane to me. Thank you everyone for listening to my story. On this channel, you'll learn more about Tab Commerce and how we help restaurants take control of cash flow, unlock higher spending power, and manage expenses with smarter tools built specifically for restaurants. To find out more, check out tabcommerce.com and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.